Ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. We're the Graham City Council. We appreciate everybody being here tonight, and rest assured everybody that wants to speak will have opportunity to do so. I'm now going to go to Chip Turner, who's going to do our invocation. Chip, if you would, please, sir.
Pray with me, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for this gracious day you've given us, and thank you for the gift of life and your love and mercy. And we ask you blessings upon our nation, and upon this city, and our city staff and our employees. Now, guide this council to do the right things tonight, and be with us and be with all who attends. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Would you rise for our Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, first we'll do our consent agenda. A is approval of minutes. I'm going to wait on the Alamance Christian thing. They're not here, so we're going to wait on that just a few minutes. We'll go to number 2, the consent agenda. A is approval of minutes, May 7th. B is approval of minutes, May 15th. C is approved tax releases. D, approved recreation and parks request to close 100 and 200 blocks of West Elm Street. And E is approved FY 2018-2019 budget amendments. Does anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda? If not, I need the motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, sir. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you all. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Next, we'll go to number 3, old business, quasi-judicial public hearing, Cromberg's Campground. And I will go to Brian, please, for our instructions.
Oh, yes, sir. I didn't know if, Chuck, were you going to make a motion to, if you would?
Come up, Chuck. Give us your name and address, please, sir.
Chuck Calley, 808 Sidey Street. I would like to have it tabled for one more month. It seemed like we're out of town for a week. We couldn't get all the staff together. We're close. I think we're there, but we need to sit down one more time. And I think at request of Brian, we thought that that's fine. It's just, it's not that we don't want to move forward and we're not anxious to move forward. It's something that's unique in itself. And it's like, they're having to find their way through this thing, I think. But Frankie, staff, Aaron, Nathan, all's been like good about it. So it's a good thing. It's just we need to make sure we're all on the same page, I guess, right at the end, right?
So yes, we just have one key component in the operating and maintenance agreement that we need to work through. And I think we can make a concerted effort to get together, during the month of June and get it ironed out, be back and continue it to a time certain.
What's the will of the council?
I'm good with it.
Then I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chuck. We'll continue this next month, and we'll move it to our regular monthly meeting next month. Okay. Next, we'll go to the Boards and Commissions Task Force. Consider official formation of the Boards and Commissions Study Committee for future compliance. Aaron, are you handling this for us, please, sir?
Yes, sir. A couple months ago, Councilmember Wiggins requested a consensus from council to review the procedures and criteria currently established for our boards. She gathered 7 members from various boards as well as staff liaisons to discuss these items back in April. What we're looking at tonight is a request to officially formalize the committee she has gathered so that the task force can further address these concerns. Staff does recommend approval. Staff recognizes the time and effort put forth by volunteer members and desires an open and transparent process that will encourage citizen participation in local government.
Let's do questions, staff. Melody, I'm going to skip you, and I'm going to go to Griffin, please.
I guess my only question is about is what exactly are we approving structure-wise or leadership-wise or composition-wise?
Well, it would be more of a committee.
Okay.
So basically the task force would be put together for the purpose of reviewing the current criteria, procedures, ordinances that are addressing how these boards are comprised and the nature of how they operate. I think I wasn't in on the meeting, but based on the feedback I've heard, there are areas that need improvement, that need to be reviewed. And I think the task force would be there to look at all of them, see what improvements can be made, then come back to council with some recommendations.
So I got the mission. I guess I'm still not, is Melody heading this up, selecting the members of this?
But she was the facilitator
Sure.
on the original
Research.
research.
Hmm.
So I would assume that the facilitator would still be her unless council desires to go another way with that. And I would assume that the members that she gathered would probably also serve as the task force members unless council decides to go another way as well.
I'm fine with that, but I just wanted clarity.
Skipper, question?
My
please.
questions were answered.
Take questions.
I do, just real quickly. So do we have a time period as to what we're looking for as far as results from this committee?
I would probably have to turn to the Melody on that one. I'm not sure how long she was
Think
expecting to
that-
work on it.
I think the intent is it's not going to be a month. There are too many
Sure.
issues. And so I think that if we tackle each one or we tackle a couple per meeting, I mean, give me three months, 6 months. I mean, I hope to get it done as quickly as possible, but give us just a little bit of time. I want to be sure that we get everything right the first time and we cover everything.
So as Griffin was asking, you're going to select certain members from boards and commissions. Is that going to be every board and commission in the city of Graham that you're going to go to that board and commission? Are they going, you're going to ask for volunteers off of those boards to serve, or?
I put together a board that was fairly balanced between staff and all the boards. Every single board, I mean, the K-9 review is not represented, and we had some difficulty. I don't think we have anyone from the Housing Authority, but for the most part, we have, and maybe the ABC board, but for the most part, we have all the other working boards that are active, involved in the conversation, balanced out staff versus the key staff, the liaisons, the key staff, liaisons, volunteers from each of the boards that I think are good representation.
Okay.
Male,
Good.
female as well. I mean, I tried to balance it out as nicely as possible.
Okay. And I know that you realize how important it is that at least you put some type of time frame for at least results to come back to council. And the people that are volunteer to be on the board kind of know what the board's mission is, but then how to get to that point, whether that's 6 months or 8 months, just to put something out there so that this doesn't linger
Right.
indefinitely for a
We're,
while.
you know, my intent is to say that we could actually come back in 3 months.
Right.
But I don't want to pinhole
Sure.
them into that. I think it's going to determine, because now we're talking about everything from the way that we market to the way that we accept applications to how we move forward with those applications once we get them. We've got a process that is unclear and it is frustrating to both staff and volunteers. So we need to work on that as much as anything.
Great.
So,
Okay.
you know, I would love to say it's going to be 3 months.
Okay.
That would give us enough time to have 2 or 3 meetings and get something done.
This task force that you're putting together, would it also address the possibility of term limits for some?
Absolutely.
Okay. For some
Term
boards?
limits, how many boards you can serve on. I think there are all kinds of issues that we brought forward in the last recommendation, a whole laundry list of things that was from that meeting, from their voices. So I think there are a whole list of things that they're concerned and we need to get straightened out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mel.
Have you got anything else to add to this?
I don't think so, unless there are any other questions.
Anybody from the floor want to ask a question about this? We're trying to make our boards and commissions a little bit more professional, and we're looking at it and see what we need to do. Did you have something, Tom? Yes, sir. Come on, give us your name and address, please, sir.
Tom Boney with Alamance News, 114 West Elm Street and 1240 Gemstone Court. I guess I'm not clear. Councilmember Wiggins, this is pretty much the same list that you outlined last meeting in terms of both the composition of the members and the staff,
That was my recommendation.
more or
yes, sir.
less 5 or 6 of each, if I remember right.
There are, I think, 5 or 6 recreation, or not recreation. There are 5 or 6 volunteer board members and there are 5 or 6 staff,
Okay. I'm not
including
quite,
another council member,
I'm sorry,
including one other council member that was on the original board, if he so chooses.
who was that?
That was Griffin.
Okay. And could you explain the presence of the staff? I'm not clear on why staff would be included on such a committee.
Staff works as a liaison to boards and commissions here with the volunteer boards. It is their responsibility to guide them into correct procedures and assist them with getting things, information and things that they need from the staff, i.e. any guidance and policy, funding, all of those kinds of things would be the same thing as having staff liaisons as well as council liaisons. That's why I've invited another council member to join me as well. When we work on these boards, we have responsibilities as well as those volunteer board members, and it's up to us to help them be as professional and to be as productive as possible.
I guess I'm a little unclear though, what is the underlying issue that has brought this forward? Is there some board that's not professional or some staff or what's the?
There are some underlining things, including process of how things are going. There's a question between volunteers and staff. There's a lack of communication that we're working on. There's also, it's not that they're perfect, they just don't know how. We've got training to do. When we elect folks to boards, we assume that they know how to do Robert's Rules of Orders and conduct meetings professionally. We're assuming a lot of things, and those things shouldn't be assumed. We need to fix and clean things up just a little bit.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I would just like to underscore that to the best of my knowledge, this will be a new and additional public body or public sub-body, however you would describe it, of the council, and be subject to all the open meetings rules, therefore. And I would certainly just register now that we want to be notified about those meetings.
You will.
And I would just also urge, I know the council has varied on this by board and so forth, given especially what I consider the origins that it seems to have emerged from a relatively small group. But anyway, I would like to be sure that they're recorded so that people both can get an accurate assessment of what was said at the time if they're there and later on if they're not.
We can meet in this very room and do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak? That being said, then I'll go to Brian. Brian, we just need to vote to form this board. Can we add a 3-month report back type thing? Not a deadline, but a report back during that motion. Okay, then let me move you to page 24 in your agenda. Now I'll ask for a motion from the council, and I'll ask the council, whoever makes that motion, to add a 3-month report back, please.
May I ask one more question?
No, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the formalization of the boards and commissions task force to review the procedures for making appointments to the city's numerous volunteer boards and commissions and compliance with qualification criteria with a 3-month return of information.
Thank you, sir. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Likewise. Now, Tom, what?
Just a clarification also, one of the issues come up periodically with various of these boards is a residency requirement, and whether there is a requirement that you reside in Graham. Is that one of the topics that's also
I
included?
guarantee you it will be.
Yes, sir. It certainly is.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, next we're going to go back to our coach. Coach, come on up here. This is Coach Paul Burns with his basketball team. I'm going to come out and read this. Yeah, we're going to bring them up. Come on up there. This is a proclamation honoring the Alamance Christian School varsity girls basketball team. I'll tell you on something. Whereas the 2018-2019 Alamance Christian School varsity girls basketball team won the NCC SA state championship. Whereas the 2018 and 2019 Alamance Christian School varsity girls basketball team defeated Wilson Christian Academy out of Wilson, North Carolina, 46-32. Whereas this was their second consecutive state championship. Whereas they finished 24-1 and have a record of 74-6 past 3 seasons. Whereas we recognize the following team members with great pride: Hannah Engel, Manny Varga, Amber Pickett, Melissa Daughtry, Ebony Lawson, Kendall Gainey, Melody Drawley, Haley Engel, Victoria Briggs, Peyton Hannah, Erica Lewis, Kaylin Florence, Charlotte Ward. The head coach is Paul Burns. Assistant coaches Scott Briggs, Eric Knight, managers Ella Knight, Kaylee Jeffries, Reagan Gainey, and Carolyn Sloat. Now therefore, I, Jerry Peterman, Mayor of the City of Graham, do hereby express congratulations for the significant accomplishments achieved by the 2018-2019 Alamance Christian School varsity girls basketball team. And also our gratitude for the pride and recognition they have brought to themselves, Alamance Christian School, and our congratulations very much.
Looking forward to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Congratulations.
Congratulations,
Congratulations,
girls.
guys. It's a wonderful accomplishment.
The last high school basketball game I worked was your game this year that you did lose. I was there. And well, they fell way behind in the first half, and another minute they would have won it. So, yep, I enjoyed. I retired after that game, but I've enjoyed it through the years. Thank you.
Well, come on out and see us now, all right?
I'll be glad to. Yes, sir.
We'll let you in for free.
That's against the law. Thank you for being here. Had to put you on the spot.
That's okay. I've known Spot a lot, and that stuff.
We'll wait for Tom to finish with him. Okay, good deal. Next, we're going to 3C, fire suppression discussion. Consider options to amend fee schedule to address the tap fees within the number 1 fire district for the purpose of fire suppression installation. And I think, Frankie, you're handling this for us? Aaron's handling it. Okay, Aaron, please.
Okay. This item was brought up last month at the request of one of our downtown business owners. City Council directed staff to investigate different options that may be a viable and feasible solution based on evaluating programs from other jurisdictions, such as downtown revitalization incentive grant programs and riser grant programs that were in other jurisdictions. It was determined that the best option at this time would be to make an amendment to our fee schedule, which would effectively exempt properties in the number 1 fire district from having to pay tap fees when installing a fire suppression system. This exemption would make the city responsible for providing the water tap instead of the property owner. With this in mind, staff would like to consider implementing a broader, more encompassing revitalization incentive program after the review and adoption of our downtown small area plan. Staff does recommend approval. The proximity, density, and general age of buildings in the number 1 fire district creates a higher potential for extensive damage from fire. Inasmuch, staff recognizes the life safety and general public purpose benefits of encouraging fire suppression systems, as well as the added construction requirements for buildings in the number 1 fire district.
Thank you, sir. Question for the staff. Start with you, Melody, please.
No, sir.
Griffin.
Yes, just a few. So in layman's terms, just because I know I didn't understand it not long ago, explain what a tap fee is, particularly in our downtown area. What is that typically? What is that fee being paid for typically?
Well, if anyone wanted to put a tap in the downtown, they would have to do it on their own. It's not something that the city would go out and make the taps for them. So
it's the building owner going out and tapping into our water system.
On their own, right. They had to get someone, a contractor or whoever, and they would make that tap for them. Where I guess a single family house, for example, that's something that I think we do for what's the cost? $600. If they're in the city limits. So essentially what happened in this case, where they were required to do their own work as far as getting someone to come and do that tap, make that tap for them, we are proposing to exempt them from having to do that, and the city would do it.
So the city would do the labor, do physically trench and connect to the main and
And make the tap
for free in the downtown.
where practical, because there are situations where, and I don't know one off the top of my head, but there are situations that may present themselves where the city may not be able to do it.
Is that vetting done by staff?
Yes.
Okay. And what mechanics would that take?
Well, with
Would that-
someone, and not everyone would need a fire suppression system,
Right.
but if they're pulling a building permit and they're proposing to put in fire suppression, then we would then evaluate based off of that information whether it's something that the city can participate in or not.
It could be a location without a suitable fire main
Yeah.
supply.
So all that has to be looked at.
And I don't know, you all probably know better than I do, what situation would arise where it's not, the building needs water, but not necessarily for fire suppression. Is that a qualifier and a disqualifier? That it be for fire suppression?
It would be a
Yes.
disqualifier. If it were for normal domestic uses,
Right.
it would not qualify.
We're talking about our staff doing the work or our employees doing the work? The tap, actual tap?
Our utilities department.
Yes, yes. They would actually do the work. And
I would say we would effectuate the work. Occasionally, we have to hire folks to do
well, I
some
mean,
work for us.
I can, like on Main Street, I can only say you're probably going up doing a bore, and I don't know if our crews would do a bore in the 87, but the cost would be significantly reduced from our crew, our employees, and the contractor. So basically, what we'd be doing is we would be basically giving the materials. Is that correct?
There would be cost associated for our staff doing it. There's materials cost, potentially traffic control costs, things like that. And there could be outside costs to get a utility contractor to assist, such as a bore. Downtown is very dense, lots of conflicting utilities,
Yes.
probably an open cut, a lot of traffic that you would have to divert and detour.
I don't know if the state would let you open cut 87, but they
Maybe before they repave it, they'll let us.
maybe, maybe. But anyway, so how will we pay for this? Will this come out of our taxpayers' dollars?
General operating budget for the water and sewer fund. So it would be non-tax revenue.
Thank you. Question, please.
I do. So explain to me again, exactly in what situation would the city not be able to provide this service?
Well, essentially, it would be if someone's requesting participation from the city where fire suppression isn't part of their project. Essentially, let's take, for example, Jason example from last meeting where he was wanting to have the sprinkler system to enlarge the area for the event center. That would be an example because what he currently has is inadequate, but by providing a fire suppression system in that building, he could expand on what that use would be.
So we won't provide this incentive for a building that has a use or multiple uses that will not require a fire suppression system.
Well, essentially, I would imagine anyone wanting a fire suppression system
Okay.
would
So anyone that
It wasn't
came
in
and
their
said,
room.
regardless of the use, because for the future,
right.
I would like to be able to provide multiple uses. Right now, it's being used for this, but I would like to qualify to put a sprinkler system in.
Yes.
And
Because
that this would be provided to them as well, even though the current use wouldn't require it to be sprinkled.
yes, because I mean, if you think about it, if we could get every building in downtown with
Absolutely.
sprinklers, that would make it way more safer than
Sure.
it's currently.
Increase the value, increase the usability of the building in the future.
Marketability of
Sure.
the building, all that.
But you mentioned earlier, there may be a situation where the city may not be able to provide this. What did you mean by that? Explain
Well,
it.
I think Frankie was giving examples where certain conflicts may be in play where the city, I don't know when you start digging what you're going to see. I have no clue.
Right.
It's a hodgepodge out there, and it may be super difficult for us to be able to perform whatever we need to do out there. So I think we have to evaluate each case to make sure that the city is able to get out there and do what's being requested.
Do you imagine what that's going to look like in the future if somebody comes forward and says, I'd like to put this in, I deserve this incentive, you guys pass this, and we come out and say, this is too difficult, you got to handle it on your own?
I hope that there's no situation where that's the case.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we got to be careful with that because it's not fair across the board to everyone. If someone can't get this service who more than qualifies for it, just because it's a little difficult for the city for whatever reason, it's going to put a difficult hardship on them to put the required sprinkler system in, obviously. And we have this incentive. We're approving it for the #1 fire district.
That's true.
I think it's very important that we provide this for anyone in the #1 fire district equally, as long as they meet the certain requirements. Would you not agree?
If council feels that they want to go that route, we will do what we have to do.
So also too, obviously there's been enough questions regarding that this is going to be full installation all the way to a stand meter box, but this does not include the meter. Is that correct?
We focused on just providing the tap and bringing it to
A box to the sidewalk, cutting through the
To-
sidewalk, putting everything
the-
back.
property line. I would bet that each situation is going to dictate a different application.
Okay.
Back to your question about an example of an area that we may not be able to provide it. Let's say there's a building or a property that doesn't have access out to the public right of way. Can't think of one off the top of my head, but there are lots and buildings in our jurisdiction that do not have access out to the public
So
right of way.
basically a building that's kind of landlocked with 0 lot lines that doesn't have access to a public right of way.
Yeah, we're not going to exercise eminent domain to go through someone's building to bring a
How
power
could we
line.
go through someone's building with a public utility when we're entering private property?
We're not going to.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Yeah.
I understand
But there
that.
are buildings in Graham whose services are running through another building.
Right.
And that is more of a civil matter, and that may be a case where we could not. We're not going to carry it through someone else's property.
No,
without
no.
Right of way. and-
Okay. I do understand that situation there. I mean, that's a difficult hardship that if it's
And that's
encountered,
not
it's
just with
impossible.
water. There's probably electrical and gas installations throughout Graham, particularly in our #1 fire district, where you've got services going through other properties.
Oh, yes.
That was a challenge with the Riser program
Yes.
that I came across when I called, I can't remember the name of the town at this point, but essentially being able to go through private property, through private someone's building, that's something that may have to happen, but that's not anything that we're going to involve ourselves in.
So the RISER program is a program that puts a central location on every block in an area where anyone who wants to access it, it has a big enough supply where any building can access that and provide a sprinkler system or fire suppression system to their building.
Yes.
Yeah. And you said you looked at that option and ran into some issues with that?
Yes, it was a jurisdiction in Virginia that I reached out and called because I was just trying to understand the RISER program a little better. And that was one of the challenges. 'Cause my question was, are there any challenges that you face in doing it? They haven't done a lot of them, but one thing that they're leery about would be any opportunity that presents itself where to accomplish what they're trying to do, they're going to have to go through building B to allow A and C to have access.
Okay. So I have to ask this question because we got a small area downtown plan underway. And the emphasis of that small area downtown plan is to improve our infrastructure of water and sewer and stormwater management. Basically tearing the streets up.
Mhm.
That possibility of putting that in one time that can supply an entire city block sure sounds pretty attractive once we got that road tore up.
I think
Versus in the future, individuals causing us to have to tear through the road and put in all new pavement, all new sidewalks for every service that comes forward. And the way we're growing in the downtown, that could be quite a few. And I hope it is quite a few.
I think that's why staff wants to revisit this whole setup at that point, because there are opportunities that will present themselves when you're doing work like that.
Yes.
That would make it a little easier than each individual person trying to tear up, install this or that. But I think the opportunities would present themselves whenever we see what this downtown plan lays out for us. So that opportunity, I think, will be there. And that's why I hope that we can revisit it later.
So we're asked to approve this now as a fee amendment, part of our
It's the
budget.
lowest hanging fruit as far as, could we do a more expansive plan, more comprehensive? Absolutely. We could include other things as well, but that would make a program take 4, 5, 6 months to get approved, where we have opportunities now that we can sort of jump on a lot quicker.
Sure.
A simple amendment, and then we can always come back and tackle that at a later date whenever we have a little more information and more a little better view of what we're having to do.
So you mentioned that the Standpipe program experiences the same issues, possibly, of providing that service to buildings that are having services provided through another personal property building. So it's the same problem no matter which program we go with. Is it safe to say?
I would say so.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron.
Aaron, let me ask you, you said it was homeowners of $600. What is the average tap fee for a sprinkler system this size?
Oh,
Had to know I was going to ask you that.
It was 15 grand.
I would say 15, 20.
Depends on the size of the tap.
Yeah, it really depends.
What does that do with our water capacity? I know this is not flowing, but if you have a 1,500 gallon system, what does that do to our water capacity at the plant?
These type connections, we do not calculate what you're asking is the equivalent residential unit that we use to establish our capacity fees
Exactly.
and our capacity. These types of connections that are static, they are not considered in that calculation, as they're only going to move when there's an event, and hopefully that is ever.
I have a problem doing this downtown and not everywhere. Why did we just consider the downtown?
Primarily because the standards are different.
Yeah.
The danger is, I would say, elevated, and the risk of damage to fire is elevated. But we do hold downtown properties to a higher standard. The primary fire district has requirements for construction materials, for example, combustibility of construction materials. So there is there's already a recognized concern. We're looking at this less as an incentive and more as a fire prevention or fire damage measure for public safety. It's like somewhat akin to handing out smoke detectors. It's a prevention. It's to help promote life safety, to get folks out of the house before they feel the heat.
You're not going to have to sell me on sprinkler systems. You're really not. But you do have to sell me on doing it for this section and not the whole city. I mean, we've never burned a building down in downtown Grant.
I hope that's not the
We
case.
put them to where they were torn down, yes, but they would. Which one?
On the corner.
It wasn't burnt down.
Yeah, that's
It was
true.
still standing. They tore it down. But we have burnt down a mill. Burnt down one on, burnt the old, what was the name of the mill over there off of Hanover? We made a parking lot out of it. It was a big mill. It was sprinkled. The sprinkler system was shut off. But
I
it
was gonna.
Oh,
I mean, there was a problem.
I mean, the council can certainly extend it to anyone that wants a fire suppression system. That would be a different calculation on our part. It would change our minds, because you're talking about accessing lines that are across 5 lanes of highways, and it would change our thinking significantly.
All right, any other questions for the staff? Anybody else here want to speak? Chief, you want to say something about this? Surely you got a word or two you want to say about this.
Simply, we
Come up here, we need to meet you anyway. These guys do. Now, let me have your name and address, please, sir.
Tommy Cole, Fire Chief, City of Graham, 201 South Main Street. The fire department obviously supports any incentive that we can have for any business in our city to put fire suppression systems in. We spoke about this, the manager's office and myself, about the density and the importance of the revitalization of downtown and pulling people downtown and the draw for that. So while I support helping any business put fire suppression systems in, I definitely understand the focus on downtown as well. But the fire department's in support of any incentive we can give any business to put a fire suppression system in.
I guess Chief Brooks back there is going to echo the same sentiments, right? I'm sure he would.
Yeah, people certainly say this. I'm Larry Brooks, 1509 Stonegate Drive.
Come on, Chief.
Downtown is very dear to everyone. And I look sometimes, we don't want to lose any property. But if you lose a house, a residence, that's bad for the family. You're subject anytime you got a fire downtown, lose one block or two blocks downtown.
Yeah.
Where you don't have that as far as an individual resident. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Chief.
Yes,
May I ask the chief
Yes,
a question? So Chief, just explain, if you could elaborate on that a little bit, just the difference between downtown and other districts with the zero lot lines, common walls, and how potentially a fire could break out. And as Larry said, it could take a whole block out pretty quickly.
Yeah, obviously.
Versus, an individual parcel of land that has a dwelling or a building or a structure on it.
Yeah, just to simplify things, obviously, a house or building standing alone, a fire in it, you don't put the fire out, the structure burns down. Hopefully there's never a loss of life, but it's not going to extend past that. Obviously, downtown buildings are built together. They're old. We don't know what void spaces exist in those buildings. And even with an early detection system without sprinklers, you still stand the possibility of major damage, catastrophic damage for downtown. And as Chief Brooks said, it's very dear and near to everyone's heart. We have a beautiful downtown. We want it to keep that historic look and the historic value. So obviously, fire suppression is by far the best thing to preserve those buildings and protect the loss of life.
And also to talk a little bit about, that zero lot line, you've got buildings beside buildings with a common wall. And even in the event of a fire like the Carver's fire, when that occurred, that coming in and having to fight that fire, the damage that occurs to adjacent buildings, even though the fire was contained from water and smoke.
Yeah, for the fire department's point of view, we're always going to enter the buildings above, below, and side to side to make sure there's no fire extension. A lot of people see sprinklers as well. The water damage could be significant in case as well. Most fire suppression systems are designed to keep the fire in check and even put out the fire. You don't have multiple heads activating unless there's a need, unless the heat or the fire spread dictates that from happening. So the damage of fire and smoke definitely outweighs any damage that you'll have from water. To be honest, the fire department will probably have more water damage than that one sprinkler head or two sprinkler heads that may activate in a building. So,
yeah. All right. Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions for Chief?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Mayor, I have one more point about your question about why downtown. An analysis we do behind the scenes is a value per acre. What's your most valuable properties? And we use land as the variable. Your most valuable properties per acre are downtown.
Cemetery.
Well,
Pretty valuable stuff. Okay, good deal. Anybody else want to speak on this? Come up, Eric, if you would, please, sir. Give us your name and address, Eric.
My name is Eric Crispin, 208 Albright Avenue in Graham. This is an ideal opportunity for the board to do a little bit of forward thinking to look at Graham, not just on your watch, but on your children's watch, on your grandchildren's watch, that you can make downtown safe for generations. The street's going to be opened up. It makes all the sense in the world. If you have to run 2 new lines down each side and then either tap to it or tap to each building, you need to put aside the provincial thinking and think outside the box and think for the future.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come ahead, Jeanette, I'm sorry. Jeanette, let us have your name and address, please, ma'am.
Jeanette Beaudry, 308 East Hardin Street, Graham. So I own a home just a couple blocks away from here. Is this never going to be an incentive for single homeowners? My home is going on 100 years old to do the same, have the same incentive to put the fire suppression system into my home?
This is probably not going to affect your home. This is the uptown 6 blocks uptown.
Okay.
Number 1 fire district. There's an incentive with the insurance that we need to work on that would make it worthwhile for you to do.
Okay, so it's never going to be required.
Well, don't ever say never.
Yeah, I know, but I need to replumb my home sometime in the future. I will be coming to get a building permit, so this is not going to be something I'm required to do or
No, ma'am.
have an incentive to do.
You would have an incentive through your insurance company. Check with
Okay.
them to see what kind of incentive they would give you
Okay.
to put a.
But it could be offered to me or to you or whoever is here in Graham at some time in the future.
I can't say it won't.
Never say never. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Nikki Smith, 402 South Maple Street, Graham. Has there been a cost analysis done for prospective future costs with a central riser program versus tapping in individually to each business that requires a suppression system upon renovations?
No. I know I haven't done that.
Is that something that
That's something we'll have to do
should be
before
done or
we,
could be done before?
It will be done before
Yeah,
we.
I think once we're able to see what options are out there for us to consider, I think that's something that we would take into consideration.
Okay.
No one's ruling any option out.
Okay. And just because even with 0 lot lines, a central riser room may be more effective and efficient in order to be able to get to those 0 lot lines versus tapping into each individual. You know, because if I have a business and a 0 lot line, I still want to have a fire suppression system at some point if I'm a public space. So just please consider doing that before
Thank you,
going
ma'am.
too far down the road.
Anybody else want to speak? Okay, then we'll talk about it among ourselves. What's about thing? Sway me on sprinkler systems. You have to sway me that we should do it for one group, and not the other. And I think you pretty well got me on this one. This
Yeah.
would be a great start.
And I think,
because,
yeah, exactly. Great start.
Because I think we do incentives for big, large businesses that come in, but we wouldn't. Could we do it for an established meal or an established business somewhere? Maybe that's the second phase of this.
Yeah, it very well could be. And I think this is a first step. And I probably made a mistake when I said it was more of an incentive base. I think, fire safety protection is more than just an incentive. I mean, it is vital to public safety, and especially in the downtown area.
Fire service, I know I've read somewhere that there's never been a building that burnt down that has activated and working sprinkler system.
Sure.
Some of them burnt down when the sprinkler system was cut off.
Right.
Or say explosion damaged the system or something like that.
Yeah.
I think another qualifier for downtown is sort of the ebb and flow over decades of people exiting downtown and downtown being neglected and having to play catch up too. I mean, that's with some of the properties that I've been researching. Going out, you have buildings that haven't had water since the 70s, since the 80s, with suburban sprawl and things getting away from downtown. Now we're coming back downtown, and it's cost prohibitive. We're at a point where the rents aren't meriting the investment. And then, call it public safety, but there's a revitalization aspect to it too. People are going to come downtown. Let's have them do it safely. And I think this is a great step in that direction.
I agree. I think that this is a great first step for us to take. Obviously, it's an area of concern for us for safety. It's such a dense area that we're so concerned about it. And I think I think all the points made here tonight have been excellent points for us to continue to look at. But I think as far as tonight is concerned, I think it's very good and very positive for us to move in this direction and go ahead and allow this to continue in the budget.
With that being said, I'll move you to page 25 on your agenda.
Do we need a motion or just
We don't need a motion.
consensus?
It would be handled basically
On the-
whenever Frankie gets to the budget.
Budget, okay.
The way it's written, we have a motion, so.
You got an NA, not applicable, but do we need to,
It says it would coincide with the approval of the budget.
Right, well, let's do a consensus then. Let's go that direction. We need something to tell them to look at this a little harder than just passing by.
Yeah.
So what do you say?
yes, oh, yes, yeah.
Yes.
We have a unanimous consensus that we'll go forward with this. Okay, good deal. Next, we'll public hearing adoption of the budget ordinance for FY 2019, 2020. Frankie, are you handling this, please?
Yes, Mayor. Tonight is the culmination of about 5 months worth of work, effort, research, forecasting to come up with the budget for our operating funds for the 2019-2020 year. It's hard to say 2020, but 2019-2020 operating funds, which include the general fund, the water and sewer fund, the internal service garage fund, a couple drug funds, and some miscellaneous appropriations from trust funds, including the cemetery trust fund. And there is an operating budget established for the water and sewer capital reserve fund that's included in your budget ordinance. Like I said, this is the final step, which is public hearing and then adoption of the budget ordinance. I'll remind the council that the budget ordinance does not delve into the object basis that we discussed in our budget meeting, but focuses on the department level. It also levies a tax rate, any other miscellaneous fee changes, including the aforementioned fire suppression fee change. Happy to answer any questions you may have. The total budget comes to $22,203,900, which includes some of the changes that we agreed upon during our budget workshop, which were $5,000 for downtown development, $2,000 for the historic museum, and $23,000 towards contracted services in the sanitation department.
Question to staff. Start with Chip, please.
No questions.
Lee, questions, please.
I do. So talk to me about sanitation contract service and how that's going to be an increase in that particular service and the reason for that increase.
Primary reason for the increase is the uncertainty in the recyclables market. We received notification earlier in the year that we would see a disruption in our recycling service. That was resolved before it actually made it to impact our citizens on their collection day. But it was another clue that the markets could be upset and it could adversely impact the cost of providing the curbside recycling service. So that's largely in anticipation of disruptions in the recycling markets.
So other than that small increase in services provided, tax rates suggested to stay the same.
Remains the same. Water and sewer rates remain constant as well.
Okay, thank you, Frank.
Melody, questions, please.
I have one on 33 where it talks about a recreation staff supervision fee that's $20 an hour. It's kind of in the middle of water and sewer tapping system. And we already have a supervisory staff fee under facilities. Is that meant to be that way? Was there a reason that it's listed twice?
All rates and fees are included in the same section. Hopefully there's not a duplication.
That one
was pasted twice.
Doesn't quite look like it fits right there.
So that's for the various centers. 33.
33.
It looks like a duplication to me. It's referenced in two different
32,
sections.
right.
Yep.
It's referenced in 32 under facilities. It's just by itself.
Yeah.
Sitting there. Okay. So that's probably a misprint, right?
The rate's the same, so
okay.
It doesn't conflict.
So we took a look at day camp fee increases last year, 2 years ago. It's been 2 years. Okay. So we're in a comfortable position at this point. Okay. And I noticed we went through quite a few things on recreation side. Are there things that are more specific? Because it looks like everything is listed and nothing is really highlighted.
This is presented as we want it to show in the fee schedule.
So what changes do we make?
The day camp fees were adjusted approximately 5%, and they would not be effective now as day camp is ongoing and registration is complete, but would be effective next spring for 2020 registration.
Right.
The field rentals and recreation center rentals was largely clarification, adding a classification of commercial rental. Do I have that right, Brian? Brian may want to, he could elaborate, but it was sort of filling the gap of, are they a resident, or are they general public, or are they a business renting out our facilities?
Right. That's a great foresight to put that in. Excellent. And I think that's all the questions I have.
No questions.
I want to voice my concern again for the amount of people we were hiring for our maintenance program with our aging infrastructure. I think we were too lean with that. And I have a problem with not continuing our Welcome to Graham sign program. Both of those things I thought we should include it in our, could have added 2 people instead of 1 to the maintenance department because we're struggling to get stuff done.
Public Works. Yeah.
Okay, with that being said, this is a public hearing. Does anybody have anything to add to this? Anybody want to say anything? This is the biggest thing we do, the largest amount of money we spend. Please, somebody come up and say. If not, this is a public hearing. We will close the public hearing. We'll discuss it among ourselves. What does everybody think? Are you all right with the budget as it sits? These are not deal breakers for me, but I do have a concern that our infrastructure is aging and we're not taking care of that. I mean, I know we need policemen, we need firemen, but right now we need somebody to take care of the water lines and take care of the garbage.
Well, I think it's important our public works directors here that in the future, if he sees the need to please request additional employees, he requested 1 and we fulfilled that requirement or that request. I don't think it's our position to be out front and to dictate to our directors how many staff they may need. I agree with you. I do think he was conservative on that, very conservative, wanting to make sure that he at least got an additional employee. But I want to encourage him in the future to maybe put forth a request that better represents the need for additional staff. So,
have y'all got to add anything?
If it's the case, if that's the case.
I thank Frankie for putting together a tight budget, the department heads, all the staff. It's a fatless fit budget that.
Fatless fit?
Yeah, I kind of stumbled on that.
Gosh, I wrote another word down long ago.
But to not raise taxes again, to be able to increase services, it's a testament to our growth. It's a testament to our management and particularly the staff.
I second that. I think the staff has done a beautiful job in doing their job. And I think we need to recognize that every year, Frankie and the staff come in at the very end and we show very well at the end of every budget year, which means they've done their jobs outstanding. And I want to commend them for coming in very well. I'm sure we'll see at the end of this budget, but in the preparation, which takes numerous hours and time to get this done. And I commend them for doing that.
Absolutely. I want to just follow up with what Melanie was saying, but also talk about why we're not having to raise our tax rate, because we're seeing growth and we're seeing steady increase in revenues as a result. So.
We're seeing growth in both our tax base and growth in some other revenue sources, some fees. We're seeing growth through natural growth of the city. Sales tax receipts are improved, thanks largely to an improving general economy. Although I'm always cautious about sales tax receipts because they're particularly elastic with the general economy, and a dip could result in reduced receipts. but growth is fueling our ability to keep pace with our service demand, for the most part, keep pace with our service demand. However, our growth isn't substantial enough to expand services, but it is enough to keep pace, which I consider ourselves fortunate that we're keeping pace.
And I think it's important to say that we're still meeting the needs and increased needs that we're getting as a result of growing with additional revenue. We're not just cutting back or skimping and pulling in. We're providing the needs that's coming forth, and we're doing that with a good steady
In addition
revenue
to
base.
growing needs, you have we have a tremendous amount of capital and repair needs that I think I gave you guys an illustration of how much money we've spent towards street resurfacing and repair over the last 10 or so years. While our revenue has remained flat to support those services, we have steadily increased our contributions to those capital services and capital expenditures. So I'm proud to be able to put more money towards capital expenses. There's a lot of catch up we need to do. We have aging systems. Burke may disagree with me, but I think we've come a long ways in our ability to address needs. We've replaced a lot of things we've done you can't see, and ultimately we're largely judged on what people see. But there's been a lot of work done underground that was long overdue, and a couple more projects. If we can get those accomplished, I'll smile. Boyd Creek Pump Station being one of those.
And that work underground, which no one really pays too much attention to, can become a huge concern when it doesn't function as intended.
Yeah, folks ask me what I do day in and day out, and I'll say, well, most of what I do you'll never see. Yeah, it's underground.
Let me
Works in a
move you to
plan.
page 27, and I'll ask for a motion from the council.
Mayor, I move that we adopt the budget ordinance for fiscal year 2019 through 2020.
Thank you, sir. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Frankie, I'll ask you to call the department heads tomorrow, give them a well done and a thank you for their hard work from myself and the council.
Will do.
All right, next we go, requests and petitions from the citizens, resolution declaring the intention of the city council of the city of Graham to consider permanent closing of a portion of Baldwin Road. Nathan, you're handling this, please, for us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mark and Wanda Blalock are requesting the removal of a proposed roadway which bisects their land at the end of Baldwin Row, shown here as Lot 4, consisting of approximately 0.06 acres. This portion of right-of-way exists only on a plat and has not been constructed, nor does it provide service to access land for anyone other than the Blalocks. Additionally, there have been no utilities located in the area by the city of Graham, nor anyone who came out as a result of an 811 call by the applicant to identify any infrastructure in the proposed right-of-way. There is an exception to that where the sewer easement that runs north-south, as shown on the plat, and I believe that there may have been a conflict with some AT&T infrastructure, which would be covered by the resolution, but I believe the applicant is here to speak on it.
Question for the staff. Start with you, Lee, please.
I do. So Nathan, Baldwin Road, I notice, actually takes a right and turns and terminates into a stub road, even though this particular request is for Baldwin Road that extends through that turn to the right. Could you explain that a little bit? Because if that was ever put in, it would have to be a changed road, but there's a portion we're going to still leave in place.
I can tell you that there are a number of locations where their road naming schema did not align with current practice. This is one of them where you'd have a T intersection and all three routes would be named the same thing.
Yeah, okay. Are we jeopardizing connectivity with a 50-foot right-of-way that leads in off of, I think it's Essex Drive is a public right-of-way of 50 feet that actually connects to this property, as well as an unopened road that provides access to this property in question?
I don't recall where Essex borders this parcel.
It actually does.
But
it comes in, and this parcel here it provides service.
The proposal before the board, the council, is for a portion of right-of-way which
All one parcel by the same people.
the Essex Drive interconnection or stub is on the south
Yeah.
east side of the
Let's see.
property.
Actually, dead south. Yeah, southeast side. And then you've got an unopened street. I'm just concerned about connectivity in the future.
If it was a 50-foot wide right-of-way, then there would be good reason to potentially protect it for future connectivity. The deed gap that exists that may have been a right-of-way dedication in the past is less than 10 feet wide in parts, and therefore not sufficient for any service at all, is even subpar for a single one-lane road, one-way road. And therefore, any subsequent action would need to acquire additional right-of-way. And it's likely that the existing location wouldn't be ideal, given that it no longer aligns with where Baldwin Road was originally installed.
You do see that 50-foot right of way that I'm referring to? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Name of the street there. You're talking about at Bobby
Essex.
Helms. Essex turns right at Bobby Helms house.
Essex is a 50-foot right of way that accessed this property.
What is the name of the stub, though? It goes up one house, I know.
There is an unopened street, which is appears to be much smaller in size, but you're talking about this one right here, Essex Drive, the 50-foot right of way, which access this property. They're asking for the removal of this. I'm just, it's not a huge concern. I just want to make sure that we don't jeopardize connectivity in that area by eliminating Baldwin. You can still tag into Baldwin over here just by eliminating this. This only connects to DOT property. And DOT, I don't think will have any future use for this. Well,
okay. Are you finished?
I am. Thank you.
Melody, questions, please.
I do not.
Griffin, questions.
Lee asked mine, but I do have one more. Is that the parcel divide where this is? We have a larger map in our packet. Is that?
Yeah, this is just a zoom in of that. So where you see number 4 on your map in your packet is the same as the number 4 there.
So if that was due north-south, which I know it's not, is that the parcel divide between that, or is it under?
It's this part of the chair. Does that help?
Okay, so that is all one parcel, that big
Yes.
chair-shaped parcel.
Yes.
And that's 2.91 acres.
I'm not sure what the total acreage is. The portion that's being closed is the 0.006.
Because it's unclear, there's a parcel marked 12.5 acres and then one marked 2.91. The back of the chair is 2.91 acres. I just was curious if there were separate parcels or not. I don't know why.
It may be that they were mapped separately. I'm not sure that they received separate tax bills.
Okay.
They would certainly meet the standard to be subdivided if they had access to right-of-way. And I honestly can't remember how the right-of-way looks on the north side, but I don't believe that it does. And so it would be forced to be one parcel if this right-of-way were to close.
Is that to say that the same entity owns the whole chair?
Yes.
Okay.
The Bollocks own all of it.
You have questions, please?
Yeah, this has got, excuse me, this has a state road number on it. Is this a city street or a state road?
It was at one point a state road, but it was adopted by the city and is now in our POW bill system.
Okay, so I'm looking at some old information in my packet. Okay, and this road doesn't even exist. It's just a field.
The portion being proposed.
They were talking about.
Yeah.
It's just, you wouldn't even see it if you went out.
Paper
there.
street.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And I did email Mike Mills and Chuck Edwards because it does back up to state property there. I'm sure that the letter of notification is going to go to somebody in Raleigh that has no idea what we're talking about, but neither Mike nor Chuck expressed any interest in wanting to maintain it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody from the floor have anything to add to this? Yes, sir. Come up if you would, please. Let's have your name and address, sir. Glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Deal with Massey Commercial Real Estate.
Yes, sir.
1629 South Church Street, Burlington, representing the property owners, the Wanda and Mark Blaylock. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have that might, or if you really want to hear the whole.
No, we're fine. I think what we're doing, we're gonna set a public hearing so that the rest of the neighbors, you know, I know there's an old abandoned warehouse
Yes.
up to the right of it and a pond. And I don't know if they still have access or need access to that, but
Yeah,
we'll set a
their
public.
access, and happy to address this in the public hearing, but their access to that old warehouse that borders the pond
Yes, sir.
would be through the remaining right-of-way that exists off of the pavement terminus on Baldwin.
Yes, sir. So our questions will probably be asked after we set a public hearing, which I think we'll probably do.
Happy to answer it this evening if it'll help.
Y'all got any questions
Yes,
for me? Yes, please.
I think it's very important that we might soften some of the concerns here.
Sure.
By asking some questions and just make sure that we're kind of prepared when those questions come back to us, that we have a general understanding of what's taking place here. What is the goal of the homeowners for eliminating this? Is that just to eliminate that burden of that division in the land that they have there currently?
What's come about is this is a vacant parcel, two vacant parcels actually. There is the 2.91 acre parcel that is a separate Alamance County tax parcel to the north of the subject area, and then the larger one, basically the base of the chair to the south. The prospective buyer of both parcels, they've been marketed together. During the survey and title search process, discovered that what appeared to be a bona fide, uniformly wide right-of-way between the two parcels, whether it's a change in technology, since the property was originally platted back early in the last century, suddenly turned out to be a effectively useless, narrow slit of land there separating these two parcels. Needs to say that through the due diligence process, there was concern by, among others, the prospective buyer's title insurance company that could that result in this property being effectively landlocked. So by closing that, what I'll refer to again as the seemingly useless sliver, that would make them contiguous properties with unfettered access between the two to allow for effective development of the whole.
I noticed that there's several residential properties. The turn to the right that Baldwin makes services several residential properties.
Correct.
Baldwin extends slightly past that turn. I couldn't tell on looking at GIS and exploring this, but there is actually a home, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to, that has a Baldwin address that sits facing past the turn where Baldwin turns. Is that road?
There is a 515 Baldwin Road that has a Baldwin Road address.
Yes.
That was, had a little fun with NC 811 trying to explain that one as far as trying to give them somewhere to look for these utilities. There is a structure, apparently hasn't been occupied in Lord knows how long, just past that crook in the road, heading north toward the pond and the old warehouse.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence that there's ever been anything past that. What you're seeing on J-Lo's survey, on the video display, there's no pavement to the north of that pavement terminus currently.
Right, except just that little tiny portion that kind of services that one dwelling. I guess
And
maybe.
it really, and the driveway, if you can call it a driveway to it, enters off of that north heading. I don't know if you've been down there lately, but it doesn't. There are apparently occupied dwellings both to the north and the south side of Baldwin before you get to that northbound paper street. But other than that, pretty much everything between the pavement terminus going up to that old warehouse, as you mentioned, doesn't seem to be much in the way of signs of life up there.
And just for the record, that small portion that you just referred to, that's when you take a ride on Baldwin, that is zoned residentially, is completely surrounded by industrial zoned properties.
That appears, it looks like it's kind of an island, almost spot zoned in the middle of I-1, industrial.
And as use by right, the future could allow the right-of-way at Baldwin Road as well as the right-of-way at Essex Drive to be utilized for access to this property. And I'm sure that's...
Yeah, I'm dealt primarily with the prospective buyer in this proposed transaction. I don't really see where accessing it off of Eastway or Essex is going to be, unless something comes up where highest and best use indicates something other than industrial.
Yeah, Baldwin gets you back to the main thoroughfare pretty quickly, doesn't it?
That is the closest both to Gilbreth and to the interstate, would be Baldwin. I just don't, unless there was some in particular, and I don't know how much it might be in your packets. I have some images of the total survey of if you'd like to see them. But there's a substantial, there's a stream with a floodplain, a substantial floodplain that bisects the back chair leg, for lack of a better term, that is accessed unless somebody wants to go to a whole lot of trouble to transverse that floodplain and that stream. That would seem to suggest something other than industrial might be highest and best use for that, just because it is accessed through a established neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed in that one parcel that's out on an island there is almost covered with floodplain elevations. So, no, good. Thank you.
Melody, questions, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Deal, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on this? If not, then I will move you to page 35 on your agenda, and I'll ask you for a motion and then add a date to that motion, if you would, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the resolution declaring the intention of the City Council and the City of Graham to consider the permanent closing of a portion of Baldwin Road and setting a public hearing on July 2nd, 2019 at 7:00 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall.
Let us reword that to the July meeting date, because we hadn't decided on the meeting date for then yet.
Okay. So amended.
Then I need a second.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Thank you. We'll have to talk, I've got a note here to talk about the July meeting date at the end of our meeting. All right, next. You have got 4B, petition to voluntary contiguous annexation for 111.44 acres off of Rogers Road. Nathan, you handling this also?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The attached petition seeks the council's approval for an extension of the corporate limits to include the subject property. The area being considered for annexation is connected to Rogers Road, Mayfield Drive, and Lacey Holt Road. Water and sewer are both available at this location. The annexation process has multiple steps. The preliminary steps following the receipt of a petition are to adopt 2 resolutions that are outlined in the requested action above. Approval of these resolutions does not finalize the annexation, as council is required to advertise and conduct a public hearing, followed by a vote on an annexation ordinance.
Melody, questions for the staff, please?
I don't have any at this time.
Griffin, please.
Yeah, Nathan, it was unclear reading this. Who's requesting this annexation?
It is being requested by Schugert.
Okay. And is the portion on the top of this image that contains the meadow there, that would in essence be the spot that's not well, with a little strip going up, is that a different owner?
I'm not sure which part has the meadow. The piece north of the creek there that Mr. Schaffner used to own. I spoke with Mr. Schaffner last week, and he said that he has sold that to Sugar.
Describe the area you're talking about just now, or showed me where it is. The greenest part there?
That part.
Okay, well, but that's being annexed as well. I'm talking about, there's a meadow just to the left. If you move your cursor up, and to the right there. So that would not be annexed. That would be the only portion.
That is still Mr. Schaffner's land, and
Right.
there is no petition for annexation for that piece.
Okay. And there's no concern with you of that being, or staff of any being landlocked by otherwise city?
We have a number of donuts throughout the city.
Okay.
It is not good practice to have the fire department respond through the city of Graham to get to another location rather than have the city of Graham's fire department to serve that location. There are interlocal agreements that help with those. The city is, as far as I'm aware, is not interested in forcing annexations. And there is a creek that's hidden mostly by the annexation line there that would be of great expense to cross with a bridge more than 7 figures, more than 6 figures. It would be starting at $1 million, less than 10 million to cross that stream.
Which brings up, we had discussed with that property owner, or that property owner had been in the room prior, urging us to have a conversation about connectivity, or at least stubs. Was that?
There were 2 stubs provided to the balance of the Rogers and Faust property to the east of this property as a condition of approval of the subdivision.
Okay.
You have a question, please? No question, please.
Current zoning of this property.
R9.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else want to speak on this? Yes, sir. Come up, Tom.
Could we get a little better description of exactly where this is? Where is Rogers? Is Rogers Road the one on the left?
Yeah.
Yes. That's right behind your mom's house.
That's what I'm trying to figure, kind of. Is this the property that's to the left? But you said Lacey Holt. Where's Lacey Holt Road?
It continues from right here and goes on through and will connect here into the property. That's the portion that Windsor has under construction right now.
Well, if I can ask, if you happen to know my mother's property, do you happen to know where that is?
You can see her pond on the very top, right? Go up even more.
It's contiguous.
Yeah.
I believe that's the parcel.
All right. Where is the creek?
This is the creek.
All right. So the property that Griffin was asking about is that area across the creek in the area that's more or less known as the Schaffner development.
It's the portion
Broad acres.
between the Boney property and what was Mr. Schaffner's on the south side of the creek.
Okay.
Were we? Okay. Anyone else? All right, then I'll move the council to page 39. After discussion, does anybody have anything you want to discuss about it? Are you all right with it? Yep. Moving to page 39, I'll ask for a motion.
I move we approve the resolution directing the clerk to investigate a petition received under GS 160A-31 for a 111.44 acre area on Rogers Road.
I need a second to that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. I need the second motion. Motion carried, by the way.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the resolution fixing date of public hearing on question of annexation pursuant to GS 160A-31 for a 111.44 acre area on Rogers Road.
We need a date for that?
Well, but it's based on when your next meeting will be.
Okay,
At our July meeting.
good deal. I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Good deal.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Unrelated, I thought, what is the procedure when you've already approved a subdivision for that acreage, have you not?
Yes. But, go ahead.
I thought that when you did that, they had to be annexed.
No, they don't have to be. If they want to tap to the water system and stuff, but it limits them to a field of.
Unless they ask for annexation.
Okay, next we go to number 5, boards and commissions, appointments. We're going to talk about this real quick, see how everybody wants to do this. We've got several applications from different boards, so tell me what your view is. You want to take it board by board, and then if anybody's here that's on a sitting board, ask them to speak, and then vote on that board. Is that what you want to do?
I would like to take it board by board, and I would like to see who is here, whose names not we're seeing on this list.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is that what, Griffin?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
All right, and anybody else wants to speak, like Larry Brooks is the head of the ABC board? Are you willing to hear him speak?
I would say it's open to anyone who'd like to
Anybody that
speak.
wants to speak, I'm willing to listen.
Absolutely.
Okay, good deal. Then I'm gonna go to the ABC board first, and actually, I'm gonna call Mr. Brooks up and let him speak on this. Larry, if you would. How many people are on the ABC board? I don't have a way to look at both of them at the same time, so.
You mean the current?
Yeah, for me to look at this. All right. Larry, let us know.
Larry Brooks, 1509 Stonegate Drive, Graham. I'm the executive director of the ABC board. Graham has 2 appointees, which are on rotating terms. Mr. Parrish, Robert Parrish is the present member on there. His term's up. Robert's been on the board. He's a good member. He's just recently retired. He got plenty of time to serve. Robert's an engineer, I think. I can't say that definite, but he's familiar with buildings that we have. He worked for Duke Power for about 30 years before he retired. I'd like to see him remain on the board. If anybody's got any questions?
Yes. Did Robert fill a vacant term? Has he served a full term on that board?
He served, this will be 3 years. No, I'll take it back, Lee. I was on the board and I became the executive director, and he filled in my place. So he's not served 3 full years on the board.
So Robert has not served his full term yet.
Well, he served the term I would have had that would have expired. And so now it's time for reappointment for him. He served 2 years, I think.
Okay, that answers my question, because there's been a lot of shakeups on that board in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Larry. We appreciate you being here. Anybody else want to speak on the ABC board? On my list here. There it is. All right, ABC board, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different people putting in an application. Tommy Faust, Ricky Hall, Robert Parrish, Christina Taylor, and Dean Ward. Dean, do you want to speak on this? Okay, thank you, Dean. I appreciate it. Anyone else? Board wish. I really believe somebody that's a hardworking member of the board that Larry is testifying to should remain on that board as there.
Yeah, and I want to say too that obviously it was important to me that Robert hadn't served for a full term yet. He hasn't had that full term yet. So, and that was my understanding, is that he was fulfilling someone else's term. So, but I do want to say that just real quickly, I'm just delighted at all the interest. I'm really just taken back by all the interest of the people who want to serve. So
yeah, we've got some excellent people.
We do, and
Even with
it's
Dean
wonderful.
Pullen, we still got
Absolutely
excellent
wonderful.
Yeah, for that, if that's not presented anywhere, we have 5 applicants for 1 spot on this board.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion, we retain Robert Parrish to another term.
I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. All right, next we go to the Appearance Commission. I am the representative from that. Does anybody here want to speak on that? The two ladies that were on it, Helen Sharp and Carla Smith, have done an excellent job. They're very active. And they really do a good job.
I'll add, I did speak to both of them today, and Carla was really wanting to continue her service. She's co-chair and has some initiatives she started. But Helen did say she would be happy with stepping aside if there was a better fit. And she's content with being on the HRC, and I conveyed that how much we value that service.
Yeah.
Got William Copeland and Ricky Hall that are interested in this, and Paul Tucker, excuse me.
I would love to entertain Ricky Hall being on the Appearance Commission.
I would also like to entertain Carla being reelected to this, as well as Mr. Hall.
Else got another choice? Rick, you sure you want to do this? Be the only man on that board. I'm telling you that. It's a tough one. It really is. Okay, then I need a motion.
Mayor, if I
Yes.
may, who are the nominees?
William Copeland, Rick Hall, Helen Sharp, Carla Smith, and Paul Tucker.
No, the ones that's been nominated.
Oh, I'm sorry. Carla and Ricky.
Carla and
Carla
Ricky.
Smith and Ricky Hall.
I'd like to nominate William Copeland to be considered as well.
Okay. Anybody other than Ricky here? You know Mr. Copeland?
Yeah, well, yes, indirectly.
All right, well, let's take them one at a time. We'll take one first. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I would like to recommend Carla Smith being reappointed to the Appearance Commission.
I need a second on Carla
Second.
Smith. Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Then I need a motion for the second member.
I'll make a motion that Ricky Hall be considered.
Need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Lady G.
Yes, I vote yea.
Okay.
Yep.
So we had a 5-0 vote on that. So our people there are Carla Smith and Rick Hall. Next, we have the Canine Review Board. 2 vacancies. We have one person that has applied, who is Stephanie Bryan. That was a pretty easy one. I make a motion, we elect Stephanie Bryan.
I'll second that, yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Historical Museum Advisory Board. Melody, this is your board. I'll ask you about Diane Cummins.
She's been a very good, very active member, and I would highly recommend that we put her back on this board.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We've also had a couple of folks to show up for our meetings recently. Ricky Hall has been one of them. April Snell has also been very active with this board. So we've had 2 good folks other folks who also would be good candidates.
Got William Copeland, Diana Cummins, Ricky Hall, April Snell, and Christina Taylor. Is anyone here that wants to speak other than Ricky?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to withdraw my application.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mayor, I'd like to
Yes, sir.
consider April Snell as well.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to consider April Snell and Diana Cummings for the Historical Museum Advisory Board.
Is there any other nominations? Then I need a motion.
So moved.
Diana Cummings and April Snell.
I move that we consider Diana Cummings and April Snell for the Historical Museum Advisory Board.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Good deal. Ricky, thank you for that. We'll keep you busy on the Appearance Commission anyway. All right, Historic Resources Commission. We have William Copeland, Ricky Hall, Christina Taylor, and Paul Tucker.
I'd like to see us consider William Copeland here.
You know Mr. Copeland?
Heard good things. I have not spoken with him.
Anyone else? Pull over Rick, Paul Tucker's bio and let's look at that.
I was going to say, I have him highlighted. I would
I
also
do too,
recommend
and
Paul
that's-
Tucker.
But I can't leave this and get to it, so if you look at it and see where we're at with it.
Yes, sir, I'll try to do that.
What's your question?
I want to know a little bit more about Mr. Tucker.
He lives on East Hardin Street. He has a home not far from Jeanette. He referenced today. I spoke with him. I think Jennifer Talley is his connection to wanting to serve, but he seemed ready to serve.
He had, he owns a historical home, if that rings any bells. He owns an historical home. Wants to see Graham continue to grow. He's done many renovations to old properties.
We only have one vacancy, so I will ask, I think Lee has nominated William Copeland, I believe.
Actually Griffin, but I'll
Griffin,
second
is
that
that-
nomination to go to a vote. Yep.
Anybody else want to make a motion for anybody else?
We did.
Anybody here that wants to speak on this?
Doing William Copeland.
William Copeland. All right, we only have one nomination, then I need a motion for William Copeland.
So move to appoint William Copeland.
Need a second? Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. All right, next we go to the Housing Authority. We've got Mrs. Grace Ball and William Copeland, Thomas Faust, that's Tommy Faust, Robert Sykes, and Christina Taylor. And I believe Robert Sykes is a longtime member there, and I think he's former chair, is he not, Larry? Please, if you would.
Larry Brooks, 1509 Stonegate Drive, Graham. Robert's been on the board many, many years. He's only served 1 year as chair.
Is he currently the chair?
He's current chair, and I'd like to see him continue on the board. Robert's retired nationwide agent. He was real active in the Booster Club. He's active in a lot of activities. I think a lot of people know him. He attends the seminars when they have them to find out what's going on with the housing people, and I'd like to see him stay on the board and possibly stay the chair.
Thank you.
Help out on it. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on this? I'm like him. He's been very active and he's a good member. So.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Robert Sykes for the.
Is there any other nominations?
Nope.
And you want to make that as a motion?
Yes, I did make that as a motion.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Next, we got the planning board, and it looks like this is one's going to be an interesting one here. We've got Jeanette Beaudry, Ms. Beaudry, Jordan Conklin, Evelyn Graves Curtis, Ricky Hall, Rachel McIntyre, Janet Searles, Nikki Rafa Smith, Christina Taylor, Paul Tucker, and Dean Ward. And I've heard from Dean that Dean, I believe you said you wanted to remain if any way possible. And Ricky Hall are the two sitting members. So tell me what everybody thinks.
Mayor, I took the time yesterday and today to speak. I spoke to 9 of the 10, except for I did not get up with Jeanette in the last 2 days. But I had a very energizing conversation with Rachel McIntyre that I'd love to see her nominated or considered.
I'd like to ask a question in regards to Rachel. That name has come up in the past with consideration for the planning board, even though her application seemed to be updated as new.
That is correct.
And so do we have any idea how long she's been waiting for an opportunity to serve on this board?
Well, the application I had on file expired in like June 2nd of this year, and we keep them on file for 3 years. So
she's been there for quite a while, and she's actively wanted to have this position if possible.
Yeah, we've had it for 3 years.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would also like to consider Nikki Smith.
I'd like to consider Dean Ward and Ricky Hall.
Griffin. Anybody else? Melody?
I would like to nominate Rachel if.
I've already got
Yeah,
her name.
okay.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, we've got 4 people nominated. Does anybody want to speak, Dean? Let your actions do your talking. I don't blame you. Vicky? Is Ms. Smith here? Would you come up, please? If you want. Nice to have you here, ma'am.
Thanks. Do you have questions or would you like for me to just chat?
Well, we can just chat.
All right.
This is a very active board. Probably it rivals us in the when the meetings. A lot of people point a finger at you and they'll get upset.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, sometimes it gets a little iffy. What are your feelings? Is there another board that you would be considered if you wasn't going to do this one?
I do have another one that I'd like to be considered for. However, I just feel like Graham's in a unique position, growing, and we have a great opportunity to work the strategic plan that I was reading and implement it because it looks like it's very robust. And so I feel like with the folks that are committed to serving in this community and the voices that we have in order to diversify and bring in a variety of opinions and be able to create a consensus and listen to people, that I would hope that I would be able to do that and support that with the citizens of Graham. So.
I have a question for Ms. Smith.
I would like to make a comment. However, Mr. Mayor, Nikki also serves on the Historical Museum Board and is an outstanding member of that board and contributes greatly. Her background and expertise are outstanding. I just, we can't go wrong if you were to choose her for any other board. We have a great member of the public who is very committed to this city and will do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anyone else here? Ms. McIntyre, Rachel McIntyre, is she here?
She could not be here tonight.
Okay. All right. What do y'all think? We've got 2 standing members that have done an excellent job. Good. They're there at the meetings.
They are. Yep.
They're very good attendance records, and they're usually very well prepared.
Yep. But I did want to say something that I think is important to, at least to consider, and that is that since my time on council, I know that I have never seen this much interest in applicants and people that want to serve. I think it's important that we try to provide the opportunity to as many people as possible when there's interest there. I think, Frankie, you will contest to this. Have you ever seen this much interest in serving on boards and commissions?
I remember a time when we had to beg people.
Yeah, just to ask to be reappointed just to keep the seats filled. So I just wanted to make that point that this is a very unique situation that we're in, and it's important to me to try to provide as many opportunities to as many different citizens so they can experience what it feels like to serve in that capacity. So, Rachel McIntyre, I'd like to second the motion on her to be considered for the seat.
Hey, Jan.
I'm on the list. Can I speak?
Sure, come on up. if you want to. We were going by who had been nominated. Welcome to come up and speak. I wouldn't tell anybody you could.
Jan Searles, 526 East Pine Street. I want to withdraw my nomination because there is so much interest, but I'd like to make a comment as someone who sits in on most of the planning boards. And that is that one reason I'm involved with the looking at boards and commissions is that we need new blood that's looking at Graham through new eyes, because Graham is growing fast. Graham is being seen by the outside. And I think anything we can do to get new eyes would be a really leap forward. Everyone on the boards have done a great job, but I think we need some new people. I'd like to withdraw, but if you're nominating anyone and they're the person that also has put in an application to the tree board, just because I'm last on the alphabetic list, let me have another member.
Thank you, Jan.
That is the case. Christina Taylor, who was also put an application in for planning and zoning, is she is applying for the tree board as well.
Yeah, we have 2 vacancies.
Right.
All right, so Jan's removed her name. So that puts us down to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 4 people mentioned so far. What you think?
Vicky Hall and Dean Ward's done a very good job, so I can't see a reason why we wouldn't retain them.
Last, we had Nikki Smith. Who mentioned her?
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Smith. Okay. All righty. So we've got 4 people nominated. So how do you want to go forward with this?
Well, I think the one that's been nominated in second would be the one that should go to vote.
That was
Rachel McIntyre.
I'd like to nominate Ricky Hall and Dean Ward.
We have a second for Dean Ward and Ricky Hall. Second, Dean. Hall. Standing members. I'll second Ricky Hall also. Motions for Ms. Smith.
I do.
So we're back where we started. We got 4
Well,
people.
She didn't have a second.
He didn't have a second.
Anybody want a second, Ms. Smith? Time for a lack of a second. So now we've got 3 people. So we will take it one at a time. First, we'll go with Rachel McIntyre.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a procedural question?
Yes, sir.
You have 3 nominees that have been seconded, do I understand correctly? And so why would you not vote on the pair or 2 people at a time?
They were not seconded before. They were not seconded in that order
Why is the order an issue?
because it's up to our discretion how we
We'd never
pick
get
this
through it.
selection.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure we'd ever get through the process trying to get 2 of them voted on at the same time. Why couldn't we vote for one, and if we have a majority, that would take care of it? I mean, I'll be willing to take any one that you want to vote on first.
No, Mr. Mayor, I guess I'm more accustomed to the council, each council person would cast 2 votes and see if any of those get 3 votes to determine a majority of the council's preference.
How was I going to do that without calling their name?
You were going to do it individually, as I understood.
Right, but I have to call their name to get somebody to vote.
Again, Mr. Mayor, what I was under the impression of is that each member would either state, or you can do it by ballot. It's not secret ballot. Well, it's initially a ballot, but you have to sign it and let the clerk or attorney have it. That would determine whether there are 2 members who have a majority out of that single ballot.
I'm pretty easy about this, but raising of hands is just about as easy as we can get. Anyone has a majority. If we get 2 of them with a majority, then the ballot will be over. You want me to close my eyes and pick which one we vote
No,
for
no,
first?
because in the past, history has dictated that typically the first one that's seconded would be the first one to go to vote, and then in that order. That's how we typically have done it. We don't have any structure to this.
No, we
What I
don't.
understand, Brian, it is our discretion to set this however we feel comfortable, and that's been how we've done it in the past. And I think we need to stick with that because that's what I expected here tonight.
Went Dean and then Ricky. We're still at the same schedule then.
But it's Rachel first, then Dean next, and then Ricky third.
Same schedule we had. Okay. First, I'll ask for Rachel McIntyre. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that 3? Thank you. Next, Dean Ward.
Aye.
4. So we've got our 2.
We got our
Rachel
2.
McIntyre and Dean Ward. Ricky, I'm going to thank you for your service. You've done an excellent job, and we appreciate it. Dean,
Absolutely.
also, Ms. McIntyre, we're happy she's not here with us.
Mr. Mayor, just in
Yeah.
this last one, the 4 were which members, please?
For Dean Ward.
Which 4? So not you, know,
I would be 5.
There's 5.
but he called 4. That's right.
That's right.
I knew we had 4, but I heard 4.
Okay.
All right, that was the hardest one of the night, I'm sure. Next, we have the Recreation Commission. We have got 2 vacancies. Jay Cook is a standing member, Nathan Perry, Nikki Smith, and Christina Taylor. And I believe, Nathan, did you say you wanted to pull from this?
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your efforts and what you've done for them. So we've got Jay Cook, Nikki Smith, and Christina Taylor. Does anybody want to nominate anybody? I'll nominate Jay Cook.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate Jay Cook and Nikki Smith.
I'll second either or.
Any others?
I'll second that as well.
Anybody want to nominate anyone else? Jay Cook and Ms. Smith are elected by. Okay, next we got the tree board. We got Jan Searles and Christina Taylor. We got 2 vacancies with 2 people applying.
I'll nominate Jan Searles.
I nominate Christina Taylor.
Second.
Second.
For both?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, likewise. Victory, Jan. All right. Good deal. That was a hard night. All right, next we have issues not on tonight's agenda. Nathan, anything?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Aaron?
No, sir.
Brian?
No, sir.
Melody?
No, sir.
Griffin?
Just to thank Ricky for his service to that board. He's been a big part of that board, and I appreciate that service.
Thank Ricky also.
Yeah, I want to thank Ricky as well, and I look forward to seeing Ricky on another board in the city of Graham, and I'm glad you're interested in continuing to serve.
Frankie, have you got anything else?
No, sir.
I want to mention Mickey's here. Mickey, we've heard the news, and we're so sorry for your loss. You know you'll be in our prayers. That being said, I need a motion to adjourn.
Did you want to discuss July meeting?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I apologize. We need to set up a July meeting, whether we do it on the 2nd.
I may be out of town. The 9th. It's unclear when we're going that week to the beach.
So the 4th is on Thursday, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
City would be off just the 4th.
I don't have a conflict for the 2nd.
I prefer the 2nd.
I would prefer the 2nd.
Tell me about the city. What would the city prefer?
2nd is fine. We've prepared for the 2nd.
Okay. Then we'll leave it alone then. We don't have to have a motion or anything. We'll just leave it like it is. We'll change all our earlier motions to the 2nd. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.